Norman, review this information before you cast your vote on April 7th for Proposition 5, the shelter bond. First part, 12 minutes of this video is the presentation. Second part, 22 minutes, is the QA section. Thanks to the League of Women Voters of Norman for holding this event.
Shelter facility bond question. Let's talk about the where. So the where, currently our shelter operations taking place right on the other side of the post office in a building we refer to as the Couch Building. It used to be the home for Couch Communications, and the city acquired that building a while ago just to kind of round out more of the ownership of the campus. And it was historically used by the city to store documents and miscellaneous broken furniture waiting to be surplused. The shelter operates there now as a last resort. We were leasing a building on Comanche, and the property owner had notified the city that the insurance company that insured the property would no longer insure the building for the occupancy of a shelter service. So the landlord said, you got to move. You can't be there. And council said, do we own any other building? Is there any other place we can go? And honestly, the only other building that didn't have another business purpose was the Couch Building, and that's where it went. It definitely was not designed to be occupied in that manner. It's got moderate climate control. It's better than sleeping outside for sure. But it does not really fit the purpose of throughput to get persons reintroduced into a stable housing environment. So for the last 3 years, city staff has been on a quest to find the where. And we looked at, I can tell you, 50 pieces of property all around Norman, all with interesting attributes. And in many instances, the answer was always, not in my backyard. Absolutely understood. Community groups came together and looked for property on behalf of the city for this particular task. Community groups came back and said, this is the place. It is just south of Food and Shelter's new pantry facility on Reed Avenue. Reed Avenue is the left side of that green triangle. The green triangle is approximately 3.2 acres, previously owned by the State Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, along with all the undeveloped stuff you see up there. That's all state land. A group of OU students took that task on and said, where do we think the ultimate shelter location should be? And they concluded this general area is the place. We worked mightily to negotiate with the State Department of Mental Health to break off this 3.2 acre triangle. It doesn't really have a lot of commercial viability because of that blue line you see kind of cutting across the right side of that green triangle. That is, it's a creek, and it is flood plain. So we have to avoid that when we develop. There are also services in this particular neighborhood that make the where maybe more attractive. And the building you see on the far right side, that big white roof area, that is Cleveland County Public Health. And they do provide health services to a number of our homeless individuals. That 3.2 acres was acquired a handful of months ago for about $74,000 with the intent that it would eventually house a permanent shelter location. When we look at what is developable outside of that floodplain, you can see we need to crowd the facility. Right now, Reed runs along the bottom of the picture you see. And in order to stay out of the floodplain, we need to keep any vertical construction relatively close to Reed. It does provide, landscaping and green space opportunities out in the rest of that floodplain area, but this will give you an idea about how facilities would be situated on that 3.2 acre site. The two structures that you saw outlined, the one on the right, the smaller rectangle, is about 6,700 square feet. The one on the left is about a little over 13,500 square feet. In total, approximately 120 individuals, including family units, could be sheltered in this space. City of Norman has been in the role of providing facility space for shelter operations since November of 2019. Prior to that, the City of Norman, we weren't in this business. Food and Shelter moved to a new location, and they said we can't facilitate the shelter any longer, so no shelter. And that was shared with our elected officials September of 2019. And they said, we've got about 6 weeks to find a place to keep people from freezing to death. Go. The first time the city ran the shelter, it was next door in the old Central Library before its renovation project was undertaken. And it was cots on 2 rooms of the old Central Library, and we had access to restrooms, and it ran from November to March. Shortly thereafter, council said it needs to be 12 months a year. This provides some amenities that are suitable for 12 months a year. What you see, and this is provided to us by an architectural firm to give us an idea about what the scope of such a project would look like. We needed something to be able to show the voters to say, if you vote yes, this is what will be built. And it actually has adequate restroom facilities for the number of people that could be utilizing this service. It has laundry facilities and shower facilities, and it also has dog kenneling facilities. We do encounter people in our homeless population that will refuse shelter services. And I've had this conversation with homeless persons when it was 11 degrees outside, and they're going to stay outside because they can't bring their dog, and it's 11 degrees outside. And I totally understand the love of a dog, and I'm sure the dog was grateful that owner stayed with them, but we would rather have both of them off the street, and this particular facility would provide that opportunity. The layout on the footprint that we show takes advantage of the building as kind of the separator from persons taking advantage of shelter services and the neighboring community across the street on Reed Avenue. Instead of having a big brick wall or a chain link fence or anything like that, the building just doesn't have access on the Reed Street side. The building access would take place from the east side of the facility, and we would just use the building facade as kind of that physical barrier just to ensure all of the activity related to shelter services happens on the east side of the property. You see some elevations that take advantage of some natural light, and it's definitely not the Four Seasons, but it is much more appropriate an accommodation than what's currently available across the parking lot here on Gray Street. So how do our voters take comfort in knowing that if they vote yes, the $8 million that they are approving, this is what it gets spent on? And basically the ordinance that establishes the ballot question spells out exactly where those dollars must be spent, and it really doesn't provide any wiggle room. It's $8 million to be spent on this facility. We've got accurate construction cost estimates, which basically all of the construction elements of this project were consulted out in the marketplace by contractors who build such facilities. And we've got a great cost estimate. We do have contingency built into this budget. If we see a cost overrun or anything, we'll be able to accommodate in this budget. And in the event we don't need the contingency because our cost estimations hold true, we will just take less than $8 million out in the bond market. If we get it done for $7.5 million, we will only issue the $7.5 million, and the tax impact to our property owners will be somewhat diminished. The impact of a property valued at $100,000 is a little over $3 a year. On a $500,000 property, the impact is about $17.50 a year. So it's this. We were talking today at our staff meeting about this. May be the smallest GO bond question we've ever asked. A similar question was put before the voters about 5 years ago. Really kind of at a last minute opportunity. We had a ballot getting ready to go out the door, and council said couch building is not appropriate long term. How much would it cost to build a replacement for that and this was just kind of on a napkin, and we came up with a number of about $5 million. Where will we build it? We don't know. What will it look like? We don't know. How many people will it facilitate? We don't know. And we put a $5 million question out there, and we got about 49% of the vote. We recognize that was a huge reach and a leap of faith with not a whole lot of information to share with the voters. Council recognized we have time now. Let's actually know the where and the what and the how much. So it's not a wild guess. It's an actual budgeted number, and we know we can get this project done for $8 million. When we think about shelter services, we're currently under contract with CityCare, and they will tell you the goal isn't to house people here. The goal is to facilitate getting you reintroduced into housing. And if you're here, they believe the average throughput at the shelter should be closer to 3 months, not years. They have shown us statistics that say a person unsheltered experiencing homelessness, the average stay outside is over 2 years, and the average stay when sheltered and met with housing service availability and support, 3.3 months. So definitely more cost effective that way for all those concerned. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have related to the bond question, shelter operations, etc.
Okay, we have several here. It says, do you have any census information on how many unhoused people are currently in Norman?
Yes, we do. And I'll tell you, I would love to say this is perfect, absolutely correct data. The Department of Housing and Urban Development at the federal government, HUD, requires all communities who receive community development block grant funding, like the city of Norman, to conduct an annual point-in-time survey. So all the CDBG cities across the country, about the third Thursday in January, trek out into the open, and we make contact. We know where most of our homeless population is if they are unsheltered, because our police department sometimes encounters them. So we take off on this annual quest to interview every homeless person we can find. And this starts at 4:30 in the morning. We're out there all through the lunch period. We're out there till 9 o'clock at night. We want to find those persons experiencing homelessness. It also provides an opportunity for us to recognize who is sheltered. And you're homeless. If you're living in a shelter, you may be sheltered, but that doesn't mean you have permanent housing. The numbers in Norman have consistently hovered about 235 homeless individuals. And this is like over the last 6-7 years. Now, I can tell you that at this point in time, take the picture, that's how many people generically we could identify and find, and we look. If we were to do the same count next month, the number could be a little higher, could be a little lower, but I'll tell you, probably half the people would be new. They would not have been here the month before, and they probably won't be here next month if we were to conduct the same count again. It's not a perfect science. The numbers held about 235. This most recent count, when we were out there, it was a huge storm coming, snow, ice, it was ice cold. Several church groups and outreach people put many homeless people in hotels. So the actual count we got was lower. That doesn't mean we've solved housing. That means on the day the point in time was scheduled, those individuals were indoors and not available for us to count. So we may see this dip We don't think it's real. We think that number's still in the 235 body range.
Okay. Let me see. What services will be available for transitioning out of the shelter?
So first and foremost, housing navigation, the opportunity for professional staff to identify affordable housing units that provide the appropriate level of support for that particular individual's needs. If there was a single solution for every homeless person's problems, we wouldn't have homeless persons. Every homeless person's issues are unique. With professional staff that CityCare provides, they're able to identify what this particular individual needs to transition from sheltered life into permanent supportive housing and out of services. So housing navigation is primary. They are also able to help individuals obtain your driver's license, your birth certificate, your social security card. They can steer you to VA benefits. They can steer you to the things that you're missing that make it much harder to get back into housing. They also have access to behavioral health professionals. And if you need prescriptions or you need to be diagnosed and under a doctor's care, they can get you scheduled for those behavioral health care and substance abuse issues too.
Okay, is the proposed builder the same one that built the library?
That's a hard no. We don't have a proposed builder. What we have are designs for a largely prefabricated metal building. It's prettier than that. We say it has gingerbread on it, so it looks nice. But it's a building construction type that goes up relatively quickly. And yeah, I really don't anticipate that particular builder to submit a bid for this project. So.
Will insurance be higher since it's near a floodplain?
I said we had a shelter on Comanche, and the building owner said, my insurance company said he won't cover me, you got to go. In a facility like this, the city owns the building. We are self-insured. We will make sure that building does not sit in the floodplain, and it is built in such a way, depending on how high the pad is where the concrete slab sits, to avoid such a flood. But we don't shop for insurance out in the open market like other property owners do. We always run the risk if a tornado comes by and plucks that building up, that's on us. So.
Well, this next question, you just kind of answered it, I think. How do they get out if the creek floods? Why not individual rooms as other cities have developed?
In conversation with the folks at CityCare that have run shelter facilities around the metro, it boils down to supervision, and at any point in time, individuals living in our shelter may not always be capable of making really good decisions while they're going through this transition back to housing. So when they're tucked in their beds, they're supervised. And in the bigger facility, that 13,000 plus square foot facility, it'll have a big men's side and a big women's side, and there will be supervisors in each of those rooms. If we put them all in their own individual room, if naughty things happen, nobody sees naughty things happening, and it's really, really challenging to try to supervise them to help them stay on the path to regain their independence in housing.
Why can't the money for the shelter come from it says out of town tax fund, but I guess it'd be your guest tax fund?
So, the voters could say, we would prefer to use hotel bed tax money to pay for this. As Mr. Olson pointed out, that hotel bed tax money, best scenario, maybe the increase provides $1 million, $1.2 million, maybe $1.3 million a year. If the sticker price is $8 million, I could potentially issue debt against future hotel bed tax revenue and just hope that pencils out. It would be legal if the voters said that's what we want you to do with those dollars. In order to build it, I'm issuing bonds one way or the other, whether they're backed by a general obligation bond question paid for with ad valorem or another revenue stream like a hotel bed tax revenue stream. Typically, arts and parks are usual and customary uses for hotel bed tax around the state of Oklahoma. That would be normal. So to say we wanted to change it, we wanted to do it differently, I would say, and I'll look over at my city attorney here, it would be legal if the voters said that's what we choose to do instead. So that I can tell you that was never part of any of the conversations that got us to this point.
Okay, if we vote no, what happens to the land?
Well, we own that land. We wrote a check for $74,000 and change. The land doesn't go away. What could happen, council recognizes that the Gray Street location is really not advantageous because it is not near services like meal programs. To get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and it's 18 degrees outside and it's raining and we got to get you 2 miles to the east to food and shelter for breakfast and lunch, and then you got to make your way up to the Salvation Army for a dinner program versus you're right next door. That's where food is and that's where health department services are. It is advantageous to be next to those other services provided. Council says we need to get off of Gray Street. We need to get out of downtown. The value of the real estate would include the current Couch building. It's worth way more as a vacant lot. And the vacant lot across the street. City Council did a request for proposal and asked developers, hey, who would come in here if this building were gone and build something cool, like a multi-story building with retail on the bottom and apartment living up on top? And those developers exist and those proposals are in hand. The value that we could sell the real estate for would be our budget. I don't think it's $1 million. Maybe it's $1 million. What we were looking at, about $8 million. I can't really pare down anything like that and get close to $1 million budget. I don't really have a good, clear crystal ball projection as to what the shelter looks. This city council has said there will be a shelter. We will not close the Gray Street shelter until an alternative exists. I'm going to be strapped to figure out a shelter solution for the price of the real estate under the Couch building and the vacant lot across the street. I wish I'd told you, got that problem solved, but we don't.
With the Salvation Army moving forward, what is the point of Norman building a facility?
So, I have had many a conversation with the Salvation Army about their plans to expand. I don't think they've submitted anything for a building permit. I think they're having the same challenges figuring out how to pay for that expansion that we are trying to figure out this one. The Salvation Army's program, it's a little different. They have housed and helped house a lot of people. They have a set of requirements to be sheltered there and a pretty finite time for which any individual is allowed to be a guest. They have other requirements, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I've been told, like, oh, you got to go to church services, you have to do these other things, and that just may not be in some individual's wheelhouse to say, yep, I'm ready for that now. So I don't think we're competing for the same homeless population. I think there is a component of that 235 people out there unhoused at any given time in Norman. If they had 100 beds and this was 120 beds, we'd still be chasing around a handful of homeless people if both were built and fully operational.
If this Norman shelter fails to meet its goals, or if local homelessness count decreases, what is the legal recourse for the community to have the facility closed?
So, in a public facility, first of all, if we solve the problem, we're going to write a book. We're going to make millions because whoever solves it first they're going to have the market wrapped up. If over time our homeless population has diminished to the point where, nope, we don't need shelter services anymore, it's still a city facility and could be repurposed. And I'll look at my attorney to make sure I'm not saying anything that's going to get me put in jail because I don't look good in orange. But the way it's described, it's a city facility for the purpose of shelter services. And 10 years from now, we've solved it. It could be a rec center. It could be an art facility. It could be a lot of different things. We would own it. It'd be bought and paid for at that point.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. You guys got any more back there? This gentleman right here?
Oh. I think they would have the ability not, it's not a commercial kitchen. That's right next door at Food and Shelter. The CEO at CityCare and the CEO at Food and Shelter are having this conversation to make sure they're not duplicating services. And there are a lot of different ways you can provide 3 square meals to a population, and maybe you only need a kitchen for 2 of them. But that will be a coordinated effort to make sure commercial kitchens are insanely expensive to build. So the plan is those meals will still be prepped and delivered at Food and Shelter, and they may work on a dinner solution so everybody doesn't have to trek all the way down Porter for a dinner at the Salvation Army. Yes, sir.
Lately, these days, we've seen Mother Nature laugh at floodplain maps. What contingencies do you have, or what preparations do you have to build above what the current floodplain might require?
Overbuild in this particular instance is still relatively inexpensive by bringing the foundation up 6 inches. We've got great historical data on the flow in that particular channel, and there will ultimately be additional stormwater solutions as the balance of that vacant land develops. We are told by the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse at some point there's going to be a big for sale sign up in front of all the vacant land. When that becomes developable, a buyer will have to bring in a map, a plat, and get it zoned and get a land use on it to make it developable. And at that point, ultimate stormwater solutions will be developed, and it could include a series of detention or retention basins along that creek to deal with that 100-year, 500-year flood event. But we are certain, and I look over here at Mr. Scott Sturts, our city engineer. He speaks stormwater and floodplain and all that kind of wonderful stuff. And Scott, this is your instruction. Make sure my floor don't get wet.
Correct.
Got it. Yes, sir.
Okay, so is there gonna be any liability in that writing right there, where you could be responsible for whatever they steal and tear up? Take it out of the $8 million you're trying to go, and tell them, if you steal or tear something up, we're gonna take it out of your money.
And inside the building, I would describe the design as being pretty rugged. When we go up and look at the CityCare facilities, and Oklahoma City has also built shelters in the last handful of years through their MAPS program. The magic is in the design on the inside and the construction materials you use. It will be a little more challenging to cause damage. There will be wear and tear, and we do maintenance on, 70 public restrooms around town, and I would say nothing gets rode harder than public restrooms in a whole bunch of parks in Norman, Oklahoma. So we're pretty good at that too.
I was talking
Last question.
people that live in that area, there's a group of them in here that they break into their house, they steal their stuff. Some of them's been almost assaulted. So if the police can't manage that, then you take responsibility for it, you can put 500 of them over there.
Well, I would say I'm looking over at Lieutenant Lee McWhorter. He runs our PACE program, primarily focused on the dealings with our homeless population and where they conflict with the rest of society. He also happens to be a member of the board at Food and Shelter, and highly aware. One of the issues that we have right now is this need for that population to be migrating back and forth across town to get to breakfast, to go to bed, all those things. The goal is to minimize that foot traffic. Right now, our current homeless population is making their way through that neighborhood every day to go eat breakfast. We can keep them out of the neighborhood by keeping them on the east side of this facility and walking up to Food and Shelter, not on Reed, but behind Reed. That's the goal. That is kind of the intentional build at that particular location, just to minimize the need for all the pedestrian activity we see. So we believe that will have an impact. Yes, ma'am.
Last question. This will be the last question. Go ahead.
Well, actually, she read my questions, but it's probably my fault the way I worded them. The
Correct.
So their exits are on the side where the creek is.
Correct.
My first question was, what if there is a flood? If there is a flood, is there some other way that they can get out besides exiting into the creek?
That is an excellent question. So, right now what we have are architect's renderings and a concept. And I am super duper happy to have that specific conversation with the architectural group to say, give me an emergency exit. And when I look at that big triangle, I'm thinking if it's not on Reed, it's got to be to the north. And then I'm into a parking lot and food and shelter. So I appreciate that. Mr. Olson, we will make note. We will have that conversation with our architect, and we'll be able to identify that on the final set of construction drawings. Thank you.
Okay.
And the other one was, I have seen, because of Facebook and online web things in other cities where they have built other individual buildings, just enough so that a person can get in and sleep, they can use the restroom and what have you, wash their hands. It doesn't have food, but it keeps them warm overnight, and it's only just one person, so it's not the idea. But they're separate buildings in the same area, and it seems to me, I've read that there's been a lot of success with that as far as people using that, feeling like, now I have a place, now I can move on to the other needs.
So I recognize, and I've seen photos in communities where you have tiny houses.
These are even smaller than tiny houses.
And we would refer to those as an SRO, a single room occupancy facility. The city actually looked at buying a motel that was in immaculate condition. The neighbors had a fit. It would have been developed, when you go into a motel room, it's a single room occupancy. It's got a toilet, a shower, a sink, and a bed, and that's it. And we looked at such a facility. We weren't able to get to an opportunity to purchase it. At a stage in recovering from homelessness, individuals have an ability to succeed largely unsupervised in that scenario. The people that would take advantage of this shelter, they may have slept in somebody's doorway on Main Street last night, and the goal is to, first and foremost, get them off the street. In a facility that is available 24 hours a day, all of those homeless services, substance abuse services, and behavioral health services, they happen 8 to 5. And right now we don't have that. At 7 in the morning, the door's open, you gotta leave, we lock the door behind them. None of those services are being provided. That's a gap. And we do need those single room occupancy units available in Norman. And individuals that would exit a shelter, here is your permanent supportive unit. We will check in with you weekly. We will make sure your prescriptions are filled, you're taking your meds, and you're making it to your appointments. That might be an immediate step exiting this particular shelter.
I want to thank you all for participating tonight and providing the information. I want to thank the audience for their questions, and I want to thank the city for its assistance in putting this forum together. Don't forget to vote on April the 7th. Also, we had a question about the importance of the primary if you're voting as an independent in June. Keep remembering state question 836 is on the ballot, which deals with 832. And it deals with increasing the minimum wage, correct? Yes, it deals with increase. So you still get to vote even if you're an independent. So don't forget to vote on April 7th and again on June the 16th. Thank you.